Luigi's Mansion is a built-to-be replayable, creepy, pseudo-survival horror game, fun, classic Nintendo title, Luigi's first real solo game, no checkpoints, manual saving only, they stole the Ghostbusters vacuum idea, unique, arcade Resident Evil for kids, intuitive, fantastic soundtrack, almost every room is a new unique enemy with its own puzzle to solve, regular enemies look cute and cuddly, surprisingly deep combat, hearing what Luigi has to say about things around the mansion is weirdly engrossing. Hearing Luigi constantly humming or whistling the game's beautiful theme song in your ears, depending if he's scared or confident, is also weirdly soothing. Ghost tracking, ghost hunting, and honestly so much more. Luigi's Mansion takes all of these little things and brings them together to create what I believe to be an excellent, unique title and an experience that every gamer should take the time to try. Luigi's Mansion was a GameCube launch title, developed and published by Nintendo. Released on November 18, 2001 in North America, players control Luigi as he explores a haunted mansion and deals with the ghosts within with his trusty Ghostbuster-style vacuum pack. As a GameCube launch title, the overwhelming sentiment around Luigi's Mansion was, why isn't this a Mario game? The NES, the Super Nintendo, and even the Nintendo 64 were launched with generation-defining Mario titles, all which went on to sell millions. And for the GameCube, we're getting a weird horror game starring the scaredy cat younger brother? Player 2s of the world were over the moon. In all seriousness, this decision was out of left field for sure, and most likely negatively affected the overall sales and sentiment for Luigi's Mansion. The title still managed to sell 3.3 million copies in its lifetime and went on to spawn 2 sequels and even a couple of remakes, but there's no escaping the first impression that it put out into the world. Having been released in 2001, you might be surprised to hear that it still stands on its own today. Now, it's definitely not as modern Call of Duty Fortnite gamer friendly in the way that it sits back to let you explore and understand the mechanics on your own, which as you'll see later on really added a lot of time to my playthrough, but there's no microtransactions, so... Luigi's Mansion is definitely a 2001 game, but it truly pioneers some of the trends that would be present in modern gaming decades later. Dual analog sticks being a huge one, where the left stick is movement and the second is the direction that Luigi's actually facing. And having 23 unique enemies or boss battles isn't something that was really done too much before Luigi's Mansion. I never had a GameCube as a kid, and as a result, I never actually got the chance to try out Luigi's Mansion until playing through it for this video. My simple answer to was it that good is yes. Luigi's Mansion isn't just a title that holds up well through time, it is genuinely a great game. The premise for Luigi's Mansion is quite simple. The Mario brothers have won a huge mansion. Not really remembering having even entered a contest, the brothers decide to go and check it out, with Mario going solo first and Luigi to follow sometime later. Once Luigi finally arrives, his real eyes realize, and he begins his quest to clear the mansion of ghosts and free his kidnapped brother from the evil King Boo's clutches. The game begins with Luigi entering the main mansion door a la Resident Evil, and you're given free reign of the mansion. But of course, basically every door is locked until a key magically falls out of the sky from a golden spirit, which opens the door and Luigi walks right into the Boo's trap. The gold spirit returns, and right before he kidnaps Luigi, the mad scientist Egad, yes, Egad, manages to restrain the ghost just long enough to save Luigi, and both of them run off to his laboratory. Once there, Egad explains the history of the mansion, his paranormal studies, his ghost capturing device, the proton pack, the Poltergust 3000, and he reveals his final machine, the ghost portrificationizer. Yeah, that will turn the ghosts back into paintings, essentially trapping them in the painting itself for eternity. After a quick training montage, Luigi's now ready for battle. He returns to the mansion and reassures Toad that he will indeed save Mario and return the mansion to its hospitable beginnings. The adventure starts here. The gameplay loop of Luigi's Mansion is relatively simple when you list it all out. Explore the room, find out if there's any unique or mansion ghost inside. If so, figure out the puzzle to make it vulnerable to attacks, suck it up into the Poltergust 3000, and move on to the next room. But actually doing the tasks and figuring out the gameplay loop during your first foray into the game is much more complicated than it seems. It took me forever to figure out the solution to the very first room of the game, and the second, and the third, and the doghouse. Actually, a lot of this game took me forever on my first playthrough. And to be honest, I kind of missed that in a lot of recent games. God of War Ragnarok, for example, if you take too long on the puzzle, one of the in-game characters will pipe up like, if only we could freeze that cog. Like, let me find the cog before you start telling me what to do. I was still looting. I hadn't even started looking for a cog. It just feels like a lost part of video games. Back then, the game let you try everything you can, and then you give up on your own, you still don't get an answer from them. You have to go search it up on your own. It just won't give you the answer if you don't figure it out in the first 30 seconds. This was a trend for me playing the game, where sometimes an entire 45-minute session was me wandering the mansion's various rooms trying to figure out what I missed or where the next ghost room was. On to the combat. At first, it feels clunky and bizarre. Now, bear with me here, but to successfully win an encounter, you're supposed to flash your flashlight on the ghost, but only for a split second. Then while their heart is showing, but before the ghost itself disappears, you're expected to start vacuuming in the correct direction, even while the ghost is moving. And then once the ghost is attached, you must continue to not only not let the ghost go, but move both analog sticks around to continually weaken the ghost, and also not be hit by any of the hazards or other enemies in the room. Sometimes the ghost will seemingly be able to disconnect itself on its own. I think it's because of where your sticks are aiming. Honestly, I was just kind of rotating the sticks around, but if you end up aiming in the same direction as the enemy is going, your pull weakens and the enemy disconnects itself. Seems pretty simple, right? I was never able to vacuum up a portrait enemy in one go, but I hear it's possible. We'll go into it a little bit later. Once it all clicks, the combat leads to extremely satisfying encounters, which the game continues to ramp up throughout a playthrough, leading, of course, to a beautiful near-endgame battle in which if you play your cards right, you can vacuum up to 4 ghosts simultaneously. By the end of the game, you're locked in and handing out whoopings to every ghost that looks at you for too long. And it does take forever to get to that point. But once you get there, man, it feels amazing. And even then, you're not a pro yet. For the actual skilled players, there are these enemies called speedy ghosts. These blue ghosts are evil. If you mess up the encounter, it's gone. Not gone for a couple of minutes, gone for the entire playthrough. You get one chance. You flash the light on it and reveal the heart, but don't vacuum. Also, do you know how many times I wrote suck it up and changed it to vacuum while I was writing this script? But if you flash the light on these blue ghosts and don't vacuum it up in time, it's gone. Your options are let it go or reload your last save and try again. But remember, saves are manual in this game. And the speedy ghosts for your first playthrough seems like they're just kind of random. So if you didn't know it was in the next room and you haven't saved in a bit, you have a choice to make. Lose progress and redo everything since your last save, or lose the ability to 100% the game. This brings me easily into the next part of this review, the replayability of Luigi's Mansion. Replayability was definitely a priority during the creation of Luigi's Mansion. From the rooms, the ranking system at the end of the game, the collectible money in a bunch of different currencies and ways, from the overall quality of your ghost busting resulting in different monetary benefits. The true concept of Luigi's Mansion is displayed over multiple playthroughs, just like Resident Evil. Resident Evil 1, which came out for the PlayStation a couple of years beforehand, also took place in a vast mansion. Also had rankings at the end of a playthrough, also pushed hard for replayability. There are definitely differences. Where Resident Evil rewarded a skilled player with better guns and infinite ammo on following playthroughs, Luigi's Mansion instead rewards a player with satisfying combat. You get better as you play. An experienced player can blast through Luigi's Mansion in an easy 4 or 5 hours, an afternoon basically, taking out each portrait ghost in one vacuum session, collecting the maximum amount of money possible, opening all the secret rooms, collecting the speedy ghosts, collecting the 50 regular ghosts, and unlocking the best ranking of the game, all while taking little to no damage throughout the entire run. Like I said during the intro, Luigi's Mansion is Resident Evil for kids. I honestly wouldn't even be surprised if the developers were telling themselves that as they were making the game. Once you capture a portrait ghost and put them through the portrificationizer, they are all displayed via this beautiful gallery that Luigi can visit whenever he goes to see Egad. There's a secret rating system for your battles with the portrait ghost. The color of the frame that the ghost is in and the size of the pearls that you get are what is affected. If you can drain 90% of the ghost health in one suction section, you get a gold frame and the biggest pearl. 50 to 89%, you'll get the silver frame and medium pearl. And anything under 50% in one go, basically every single one of mine, will grant you small pearls and a bronze frame. The system is similar for the big boss portrait ghost, but instead of pearls, it's based on Luigi's health at the end of the battle. It's very similar, being over 90 health points for gold, 89 to 60 health points for silver, and then below 60 health points granting bronze. The final game rating is based on the money you got throughout your run, which is based on your skill during battles, as getting hit loses you money every time, and not being efficient during the battles grants you less money overall, as well as your detective skills in finding all the money hidden throughout the mansion, including secret rooms, pots, plants that you have to grow, all this extra stuff. Luigi takes all the money he found in the mansion and invests it into like a side mansion or into the mansion itself, creating himself either a literal tent for rank H up to a colossal, beautiful mansion with an L right on the top, solidifying Luigi's ownership of the mansion and his new life and times as a billionaire for the A ranking. One thing I want to quickly touch on is the portrait ghosts all having their own unique puzzle and backstory. There are 23 of these ghosts throughout the game, and almost every single one has their own unique room, puzzle to solve, and ensuing battle to compete in. The portrait ghosts are sometimes these grandiose bosses, and sometimes they're simple little puzzles, but they each have a backstory and a uniqueness to them. Sometimes even with an implied sadness, like the young girl that passed away in her sleep, or the man who ate himself to death and then continues to gorge in the afterlife. While Luigi's Mansion has many memorable moments, slight spoilers ahead for a late game boss, the fight against Boolossus really stuck with me. It was such a surprise and unexpected encounter that threw all my expectations out of the window. It had me fighting 15 of the small collectible ghosts all at once. Yet again, there's a unique way to open the enemy to damage, and once you figure it out, it's another fight to the death. You slowly siphon off boo after boo of the enormous creature, and at the end of the encounter, it's a simple boo like you've been easily vacuuming up in the other rooms throughout the mansion. I thought it was such an incredible moment, which quickly lowered my dread about having to collect 25 plus more boos to get to the coveted 50 that has been plastered on the bottom of my screen the entire time while playing, and the whole time it creates yet another fun and unique battle. There was also this room called the Twins Room. Basically, you go in and it's obviously a kid's room. There's a bunk bed in the corner, but there's this little airplane mobile. So after doing everything you can with your vacuum, you finally end up blowing on the airplane mobile. The airplane spins and the ghosts come out. They say, "Do you want to play hide and seek?" Of course. So they tell you to leave the room. You leave, you come back. There's 4 boxes on the ground. You can get lucky and just open them up randomly, and maybe you get them, maybe you don't. If you fail, they kick you out of the room and you redo it again, over and over till you get it. Or you go in and you realize that if you kind of use the vacuum on the boxes, if they're in the box, they will kind of shiver or shake as you vacuum them. So then you know where they are. Once you do that, they accuse you of cheating, basically no matter what, even if you do find them fairly, and a fight ensues. It's just a little small puzzle, but it's the uniqueness of all of these different things that really add to this game. There was not a single portrait encounter that felt unoriginal or boring. Let me remind you again, this is a title from 2001. Was Luigi's Mansion that good? Absolutely. And it's to the point where I recommend most gamers at least give it a shot, either through emulation, the original GameCube title, or even the remake on 3DS, as it's really unique and it still holds up very well today. Be ready for some potential wandering around, not sure what's next, because as soon as you pass that, the game is over and you'll be itching to start playthrough number 2 and see if you can beat your previous ranking. Thanks for watching till the end, and I'll see you next time.